Hey, it's Chris Peters again. On this quick video, we're going to talk about metadata columns in your document libraries and the reason why those are pretty handy to use for organizing your content, making it searchable and categorizing it and things like that. So we're just going to go into a document library. I'll show you an example of a basic document library, talk about the columns that come with the library automatically, and then how we can add extra columns to further categorize the information in the library. We're going to start by going to our gear and into our site contents. And once site contents is up, the document library we're going to use is this document library. And the first thing to look at here are the columns. Which ones are metadata columns that we put in ourselves, and I can show you on this video how you do that, or internal columns that come with the new library when it's first built. If we start from the beginning here, this documents library has a field in it, or a column we'd refer to as name. So that's the name of the document that the document was carrying if you uploaded it, or if you created a document in the library directly. This would be the title, the actual name of the file. I want to skip over these two here. Modified automatically comes with new libraries. It just shows you the date and time that a particular item in the library was modified and who modified it. Now, if we have a document in here that's checked out, being worked on by somebody who doesn't want somebody else in that document at the same time, the checked out indicator would show their name right here. So if Chris had sample one document checked out and was just simply working on the document, if another user came into this particular library and looked at the documents library, they would see that the first document here is actually checked out to Chris Peters. So those are some of the internal columns. Now the ones we want to get to next are the metadata columns that we can add ourselves. I've added two here, but there's lots of different types of metadata columns you can add. I added one called category, so when this library gets big and there's a lot of documents in it, I can indicate the category of the document. In this example, I have a Word document that's being used as a diagram. I have another document as a job aid, and I can select this information when I add the new document to the library, and I'll show you that too. The second metadata column I put in for this example is the primary contact. So if you have a document in here that you're curious who the main contact is for that document, and you can go ahead, let's say you want to make some suggestions on some of the content or the formatting in the document, and you just wanted to know who to reach out to. This would tell you very quickly who the primary contact is. And again, these are two metadata columns. We would refer to them as custom metadata columns, which means they're types of columns we can add to the library to further, again, organize and categorize the content in the library. When we talk about the columns, think of like an Excel spreadsheet. If you put a spreadsheet together that has 5 or 6 columns in it, each of those columns could be like a name, a category, a contact, just ways to help further identify that particular document that's listed. So if you think about the spreadsheet being rows and columns, SharePoint's kind of like that too, but with a lot of extra features that help people organize, sort, categorize, and group content that's in their document library. Another good feature in this particular primary contact column, if I hover over the name that's here, it's going to pop up information such as an email address or other ways to contact the person, which is pretty handy. That way you're quickly getting to that person's contact information so you can go ask them a question. So let's see how this is actually done. You'll notice I've got these columns in here. The view for this particular document library is an all documents view that has a built-in add column button right here. So it's a fast way to add additional columns. So we're going to give that a click. First thing it's going to show you are the types of columns that you can add. You can add a text column, which would basically just be a single line of text type of a text column. A choice type of column, that's what we actually used for the category. So we give the end user the ability to select one of the categories to associate with their document. But we can also put date and time types of maybe document due date for finalization, things like that. When does this document need to be formalized? The formalization date would be a date and time type of a column. Multiple lines of text are different than regular text because multiple lines of text give you the ability to type literal paragraphs into that field, as well as put hyperlinks in there and do a little bit of basic formatting of content that you might be putting in your notes, so to speak, for the document. So making things bold, changing the font colors and font sizes, things like that. Another type of column you could add to the library, again, to further organize and categorize your content, is person. This is the name of the web part we used for the primary contact. Each one of these has their own setup because they're all a little bit different in what they actually do for you in the library. Other custom metadata columns you can add are a number. Let's say a number on a scale of 1 to 100, things like that. You can also put in numerics that might have to do with money and things like that. You can see that currency one that's down here. You can also put just a yes or no toggle type of a column. You could put a question on it: is this document complete? And the value you could put in, you could choose from either yes or no. And the reason that this might be possible to be helpful too in a big library is maybe all you want to see are the documents that are not complete yet. So those ones will be the ones that have been tagged with no. Our goal being to try to trim down all the scrolling up and down that you need to do in the library to get to what you need to get to. The next column that we can add to a library, or to a list, in this case it's a library, is a hyperlink. So if you had a particular URL to a hyperlink, or hyperlink to a location somewhere else in SharePoint, or some other source of information related to the document, you could basically put a link into one of your columns that would go to the URL that you specify. And again, this is metadata columns part 1. You can also put a location column in here. We'll give you more details on that in future videos, but the idea with location would be kind of a geolocation of where your particular site is at the time. So we'll get down into that a little bit more deep in future videos. Images, pretty straightforward. Again, these are all column types we could add to this library. Managed metadata is a little bit more industrial strength for doing metadata at the whole site level and even above. We'll save that for future videos too. And the same goes for the lookup. Lookup is basically having a field in your library that does a lookup to another field in another library. So intermediate to advanced types of stuff. And we'll get into those again in future videos. So let's say we wanted to say that document number 3 has a certain document category and a certain contact. There's lots of ways to do it. One, when the document is uploaded, a form will show up to let the person choose the category and the primary contact. In this case, we can also select a document that's already in the library. And if I go to this information panel here, this details pane, you'll notice as I scroll down a little bit, this is the basic information about what I've got selected here. And you'll notice there's the name, and here's that category field we were able to add. So this is where you're telling it what to put in here for this particular document. And you can see we've got some color-coded formatting that works out pretty good too. So for this one, we'll say this is a report. So I click report, and you'll notice But it's going to put report in here now, and it's got some formatting which you can control, color and size. And then our second sample metadata column is the primary contact we talked about here. So I'll just put myself in again. Just start typing my last name. It resolves me in Active Directory, and we'll select me, and notice it's going to populate that here also. And it's auto-saving when we do these one document at a time. If you had multiple documents that you wanted to tag or put a value into one of these metadata columns in a batch mode, like at 30 documents at the same time, you'd be able to do that by simply selecting all of them. But then you'll notice once you make your selection of what you want the category for all three to be and the contact for all three to be, you will have a save button to actually save your work for that. That's about it for looking at document library with a couple of sample documents in it, adding a metadata column specifically to help categorize the document, a second one to help provide the viewer with the name and the ability to contact the primary contact that's related to the document can be helpful. We also talked a bit about the other various types of metadata columns, and we'll do future videos where we take 2 or 3 at a time and just go through how they're used. Now, what we're going to do here is we're going to go into the settings for this library. So we'll go to the gear and then to library settings. And we're going to go into that more advanced library settings here. And what you'll notice, this is the main settings for this documents library, the settings page if you own the library. And you can see the original title, description. This one isn't being currently used in the view we're looking at, but there's our category. So this is the one we added ourselves, and the primary contact. Whereas most of the rest of these columns, except for those 2 we did, are known as internal columns, or they're columns by default. In other words, again, like I was saying before, when you create a new library, it automatically creates about 5 or 6 columns for you to use. So that's this is where you can see if I needed to go into my category column, I can open that up, and maybe I could add, if I decided I wanted to add some more categories of that document, that it could be in addition to the 4 that we did here, you could make those updates here. So we're going to close, and I'm going to go back home to the library itself. So what you want to remember here too is, if I go into the settings for the library, that's the classic way we've done it in the past with the older versions of SharePoint, but it still works with this new version to look at my columns, get a sense for what their settings are, what special metadata columns I have in there. That type of stuff is pretty handy. But you'll also notice in the interface itself for the user, the ability to add your own column exists now, like we talked about earlier. Or the ability to go into a particular column and look at its settings.